Hello everyone, this is the assignment 3 of tutor marked assignment. Its last date for submission is 30th September 2023 for January and 2023 session, and for 30th March 2024 session is for this. Okay, the course code is DECE-3, assignment code is DECE-3 TMA3 for the session of 2023. Total marks this assignment contains is 100. All three sections you have to attempt is compulsory. Now the section A contains 8 questions. Okay, let's start. The topic of this assignment is services and programs for children. Question 1 is briefly explain each of the below mentioned in 300 words each. Main features of kindergarten. Kindergarten is a school or class for young children, usually aged 3 to 6 years old, that prepares them for first grade or primary education by developing basic skills and social behavior through games, exercises, music, simple handicrafts, and so on. The term kindergarten was coined by a German Friedrich Frobel, whose approach globally influences early years education. Today, the term is used in many countries to describe a variety of educational institutions and learning spaces for children ranging from 2 to 6 years of age. Based on a variety of teaching methods in countries such as the United States and United Kingdom, Denmark, and Germany, kindergarten education is usually provided to children under 5 years of age. Normally, the age of admission in kindergarten is 4 years, but sometimes 3 years or 4 years children go to kindergarten. The purpose or objective of kindergarten. One of the major objectives of kindergarten is teaching children how to maintain interaction. For kindergartens, making children able to interact with one another, play games, and participate in activities that are comfortable with others are important activities. Building children's communication skill, especially in listening and having conversations. Kindergarten focuses on the idea of socialization. With the help of kindergarten teachers or instructors, children will be able to acquire appropriate language skills, acquire vocabulary, and be able to apply it to a great extent. In kindergarten, children will acquire basic ideas about culture, customs, religion, etc. Hygiene, and children will learn from kindergarten how to take care of themselves. One of the main purposes of kindergarten is to make children able to read, and do arithmetic. Kindergartens are determined to make children suitable for the next stage of their learning. Kindergartens take challenge to express children's creativity, for example, through dance, movement, and art. Developing the skills of children that they need for reading, writing, and mathematics. Kindergarten is for 5-year-old children, but sometimes includes 4 to 6-year-olds and provides developmentally appropriate learning opportunities to build the child's social and academic skills and prepare them for the transition into first grade and school in general. The main characteristics of a kindergarten system are listed below. Safe, preserved, healthy, child-friendly, and joyful environment. Presence of child-friendly content for children's entertainment. Presence of suitable sports equipment for children. Full-time attendance of teachers and instructors. Presence of child-friendly teaching materials. Presence of basic elements of general schools. Presence of sincerity of all including teachers, instructors, staff. Teaching is not textbook based but sports or tendency based. Not to put pressure on children extra. Limits of the Montessori method. Education methods, both old staples and newly mint, are always under the microscope of parents, educators, and experts. It is important children are getting the education that best suits what will help them find success. And equally important, a critical eye be placed on education to hold methods, philosophies, and techniques are held to rich standards. When parents are looking to spend above the taxes they pay into the public school system annually, they tend to want to have their concerns and criticisms answered before investing that money. Not only that, but proponents of one form of education method may not agree with how another operates. Therefore, criticisms can arise. The Montessori method has been the subject of criticism throughout the years and has been willing to openly address what people see as problems or a disadvantage of Montessori education. And through explanation, Montessori educators and experts are able to respond to the criticism with why the method is shaped the way it is and why they believe is the best way to shape your minds. There is not enough opportunity through group activity for social development and interaction. Sure, the interaction in Montessori classrooms differs from that of regular day public school or a non Montessori based school. However, the interaction students have is far more meaningful. The prepared environment used in the classroom allows for students to interact more freely rather than at set times of the day like it would be in a traditionally styled classroom. Similar to Waldorf, interaction is more spontaneous and far less structured. While still being structured by the way teachers set up their classrooms, Montessori students are viewed as individuals, and the method respects that by removing the richness and structure that is found in traditional classrooms. Creativity is quelled and the childhood taken from students due to early use of cognitive thinking and too much time spent on a particular life. A children's true potential can be activated in the early years of their lives. Up to age 6 is said to be the most formative years for children. And for a child, learning is a neutral thing. Learning is a natural thing. Even in idle play, children are learning about social interactions, sharing, counting, and the basics that will make up the foundation they will take into the classroom. Montessori does not take childhoods away but enriches them through early education that helps ignite a child's development. In these early years, children learn with great ease, and by giving them a Montessori classroom in which to interact and learn, they will develop at a more rapid rate. This is productive for both advanced learners and those who sometimes struggle. Children love to imitate the world they see moving around them, and Montessori takes advantage of the chance to help him or her function in their environment. Activities focused on sensory development at an early age will help to build a foundation for intellectual growth later in their lives. Hand eye control, small and large muscle control, and the refinement of skills later needed for reading and writing. There is far too much freedom in the classroom for the child to choose, and the classroom is far too structured. In some ways, these 2 points contradict themselves. How can there be too much freedom and too much structure at the same time? How a student interact with the environment will help answer both these criticisms. A place for everything and everything in its place is a part of Montessori's classroom philosophy. The method in itself is not structured, as students are free to learn as they want and about what they are curious about at any given moment. However, in order to best achieve this freedom, teachers will structure classrooms in a certain way to maximize student potential. The child is able to freely function within the structured class, and each child gains security in knowing things will be in the same place each time. In many ways, the freedom and class structure work in a collaborative manner. Montessori school is only for the upper class family. This is completely untrue. Montessori schools, like private schools, don't choose students based on how much money, fame, or prestige a family has. They want the best students that will help create the best education and social environments for their students. Many schools have worked to improve accessibility for students from the full range of socio-economic statuses. If you want your child to be enrolled at a Montessori school in Toronto, Ontario, or elsewhere, there are a number of steps you can take to help make sure you can afford the cost of nutrition and make a dream become a reality. There is no research that proves Montessori education has an advantage for children over public school. This is true. There is no research that definitely proves that Montessori education is better than any other education, public or private. For a number of reasons, this can be hard to determine, mostly because of a number of variables that cannot be controlled in scientific study. However, students who attend Montessori schools are more than likely to come out better prepared for life. More organized approach to life and learning, development of independence, self discipline, and a keen interest in learning. All educational approaches face criticism and vigorous research for and against that specific type of education. And the Montessori approach similarly has pros and cons. Moreover, it might not be the right fit for your child. It's about finding a school and a method that works for what you and your child need. Even when choosing a Montessori school, it's important to find the school as they can vary in many ways. So be sure to be diligent in your research in order to find the best school to help your child achieve success. On a kids net, you can find Montessori preschools, elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools. You can also find our guides to preschool daycare as well as preschool programs, benefits, curriculum, and costs. C part: Basic Concepts of Educational Philosophy of Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi was born in Gujarat on October 2, 1869. Gandhiji was a great leader, a particular philosopher, and an educator of great repute. He wanted to establish a free and casteless society with no exploitation and radical discrimination. Two pillars of Gandhism are truth and non-violence. For this purpose, he used education as an instrument. Mahatma Gandhi's philosophy of education was the outcome of his long experiences in the political, social, and economical life of the country. The meaning of education, according to Gandhiji, is to promote the physical, mental, and spiritual development of an individual. Meaning of education, according to Mahatma Gandhi, literacy is neither the beginning nor the end of the education. This is the only means through which men or women can be educated. Gandhi believed that education should develop all the capacities of the child so that he becomes a complete human being. It means full development of the body, mind, heart, and soul of the children. Gandhiji has himself explained education as by education I mean an all round drawing out of the best in child's and man's body, mind, and spirit. Aims of Gandhian education. Gandhiji divided educational aims into two categories. Immediate aims of education, the ultimate aim of education. Immediate aims of Gandhian education is vocational aim. Gandhiji wished that each child should, through his education, be able to learn a productive craft to meet his future needs life by adopting some industry or business. Hence, he advocated education for self reliance and the capacity to learn one's livelihood as the main aim of education. Cultural aim. Gandhiji wished that education should develop Indian culture. Hence, he advocated that together with vocational education, cultural achievement should also be achieved. Two aspects of the development should go together side by side. He exhorted that I consider the cultural aspect of education as more essential than its academic aspects. Culture is the main foundation and an essential and special part of education. Hence, all types of human activities should bear the imprint of culture and refinement. Perfect development aim. Gandhiji insisted that education should develop all the aspects of individuality harmoniously. Thus, writing in his famous magazine Harijan on 11 September 1937, he writes, the real education is that which fully develops the body, mind, and soul of children. Moral or character development aim. Gandhiji believed that one of the essential aims of education is moral development or character development. About this, Gandhiji has written in his autobiography, I have always given top position to the culture of heart and character development in the process of education. I consider character building as the main and essential basis of educational development. Liberation aim, according to Gandhiji, is that education should liberate the body, mind, and soul. By liberation, he meant two kinds of liberation. One was the liberation from all kinds of economic, social, political, and mental slavery. The second was the liberation of the soul world by purchasing and devoting itself to higher forms of spiritual living. Education should provide the spiritual freedom for self growth and realization of itself. Ultimate aims of Gandhian education. According to Gandhiji, the ultimate aim of education is to realize God. All other aims are subservient to this supreme aim. It is the same aim of self realization, which is coming down since the very early times of Indian wisdom and which constitutes the essence of Indian philosophy. Gandhiji wishes that every child should grow into a divine human being by realizing godliness in himself. Gandhiji himself wrote to develop the self is to build character and to prepare the self for complete realization and realization of godliness. Educational philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi, principle of basis education, free and compulsory education. Gandhiji regarding basic education or Bunyadi Talim has given his weight that education is elementary education should be free of charge and all should get educated so that they can be a minute calculation of daily living expenses, read and write. This is necessary because this will make a person live independently. Mother tongue as a medium of instructions. Gandhiji emphasized the mother tongue is a medium of instruction. Mother tongue will enable the children to express themselves effectively and clearly. If a child learns in their mother tongue, then he can learn easily ethical and moral values and the importance of national heritage. According to him, if English is to be taught as a medium of instruction, then it hinders and development of understanding and clarity of thoughts and ideas. Craft centeredness. Learning should get exposure to learn skills and craft like knitting, weaving, agriculture, and cooking, which make them self dependent because they will not only earn on their own but also develops three domains: physical domain, psychomotor domain, cognitive domain. Self sufficient. Basic education should provide such training that one can realize that immediate aim earning after or during basic education, earning for one's own self and satisfying needs. Correlated teaching. Gandhiji considered knowledge as a whole, that each and every subject interrelated. While doing craft work, it required economical skills to buy material and to keep estimating how much it would require. It will also require mathematical skills to calculate the earnings and so on. As the subject should be taught, which will lead to all round development, students should develop a love for the subject to learn them. Non-violence. One of the main aims of basic education is to prepare ideal and responsive citizens who will develop virtue like non-violence so that they are not attracted by violence or other antisocial activities. If each would try to inculcate this value, then there will be peace and harmony among the citizens of India. There will not be disagreements and it will be a good understanding with each other. D. Part Tagore's Three Methods of Teaching. Tagore was born on 6 May 1861 in Bengal in a prosperous family. He was a poet, dramatist, philosopher, and a painter. He got the Nobel Prize in 1913 for Gitanjali. He established Vishwa Bharati on 22 September 1921, whose aim was to create a synthesis of the East and West. He died in 1941. Rabindranath Tagore founded several schools and universities at Santiniketan, West Bengal, and was one of the most progressive educators of his time. He envisioned a holistic education that was deeply rooted in one's culture and surroundings but also connected to the wider world. Tagore was a pioneer in education for intercultural understanding and peace, for respect and intimacy with nature, for rural reconstruction and social engagement, and for artistic abilities and creativity. Tagore has not written a single educational treatise. His ideas are scattered in countless writings. They can also be discovered in the educational institutions he founded, which do not follow a scholastic approach but are living and growing experiments. Tagore's educational mission. It might be surprising to learn that a literature Nobel laureate dedicated 40 years of his life to establishing and running educational institutions. Rabindranath Tagore's educational endeavors were motivated by post colonial ideas of liberation, as he saw education as key to give respect and self reliance, and therefore to move beyond political, social, and economical suppression, which he tried to address since his time is Shell-Ada. His ideas were also influenced by his childhood experiences that led him to describe schools as prisons. After dropping out of school by 15, the intellectual, artistic, and extremely progressive and liberal atmosphere at home revealed to him how much joy and freedom learning could and should encompass. Tagore also referred to the Tapovans, old Indian forest colonies, where students lived a simple life close to nature and with an inspiration guru. Yet, the most important motivation for Tagore's educational engagement is artistic. In his educational endeavors, he created a poem not with words but through action and ideas that aspire to express his inner truth or philosophy. Methods of teaching. First is teaching through tours and trips. Tagore believed that the subjects like history, geography, economics, and other social sciences can be effectively taught through excursions and tours to important spots. Learning by activities. Rabindranath Tagore said that for the development of child's body and mind, learning through activity is essential. Third is narration cum discussion and debate method. Narration cum discussion and debate activities were organized Tagore's Education Center to develop oratory ability of the student. Students were engaged to solve problems of various areas through rational debate and thorough discussions. Heuristic method. Rabindranath Tagore introduced heuristic method as an important method of teaching in his educational institution. In this method, first the students are asked questions to clarify their doubts on topics and teachers try to satisfy them by their correct answers. The teacher asks the questions to students to evaluate how far the students are able to comprehend the topic discussed in the class. Rabindranath Tagore, a true philosopher, developed an ideal experimental education institute in Santiniketan. Tagore was a great advocate of spiritual education and also stressed on harmonious development of the child with equal emphasis on mental, social, and emotional growth. Tagore was the greatest prophet of modern Indian Renaissance who sought to bring change through education. Criticism of educational institutions. Tagore's 1892 article, Six are Harfir, Our Education and Its Incongruities, was, according to Prabhat Kumar Mukhopadhyay, the first truly comprehensive and competent criticism of the contemporary national educational system. Throughout his life, Tagore often describes schools of his time as prisons. In Parrots Training, Tagore caricatures colonial education, which imprisons and brutally kills the natural impulses of the parrot through mindless discipline. This satire shows that the main focus of education is directed on the school building, the textbooks, and the authorities, while the child and its needs and the method of nature are neglected. He also calls schools robot producing factories that destroy individuality and true learning, are merely focusing on exams and do not let their students mature. The production of mass educated robots or marionettes encumbers students' development of their own goals and self respect, and only aspires for worldly success instead of perfection and self liberation, which makes it easy for the colonial rulers to employ them for their purposes. He particularly criticized colonial schools for teaching knowledge unrelated to students' regional, historical, and lingual context, which often led to mechanical rote learning instead of true comprehension. Explain child services rendered by these organizations. Part A, NIPCCD, National Institute of Public Cooperation and Child Development. Write about 250 words and it contains 2.5 marks. National Institute of Public Cooperation and Child Development, popularly known as NIPCCD, is a premier organization devoted to promotion of voluntary action research, training and documentation in the overall domain of women and child development, established in New Delhi in the year 1966 under Societies Registration Act of 1860. It functions under the aegis of the Ministry of Women and Child Development. In order to cater to the region specific requirements of the country, the Institute over a period of time has established 4 regional centers at Guwahati, Bangalore, Lucknow, and Indore. The National Institute of Public Cooperation and Child Development is an autonomous registered society. With its headquarters in New Delhi, the institute has 4 regional centers: Bangalore, Guwahati, Indore, and Lucknow. NIPCCD believes in the holistic development of the child through health, education, nutrition, and child development. Its strength lies in developing training methodologies and materials. NIPCCD Bangalore was set up in 1980 and works in Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Karnataka, Pondicherry, Lakshadweep. The institute is supported by the Department of Women and Child Development, Ministry of the Human Resources. It has 10 programs and 26 support staff. ICDS, while the activities of the institute has expanded to promote voluntary action, research, training, and documentation in the overall domain of women and child welfare, it was initially started to train the top and middle level functionaries of the ICDS program. It is the apex body for training of ICDS functionaries. It has the responsibility of planning, coordinating, and monitoring the training, designing, revising, and standardizing the curriculum for all categories of functionaries, and procuring and distributing training material and aids. NIPCCD is not involved in training the Anganwadi workers but is involved in training the trainers, supervisors, and child development project officers. Training. Apart from the ICDS program, the institute conducts customized training programs for various organizations at their request. Orientation course on project formulation for mother and child care for voluntary organizations to strengthen their capabilities in formulating viable projects and implementing and monitoring them effectively. Orientational learning disabilities for school children, for school teachers to help them develop methods and techniques to identify children with learning disabilities and how to help them. Skill training on the management of the ECCD program for the supervisory staff of NGOs. Research. NIPPCD has undertaken many research and evaluation studies. A study of child welfare institution in Karnataka between September 2000 and January 2001 to understand the functioning of the child care institutions and offer suggestions to improve their functioning. It took up a 4-year research project to study the physio-social development of children in the age 2 to 6. In 1992, a study was formulated to investigate the factors responsible for malnutrition in early childhood and its relationship to mental growth and behavioral disorders. Evaluation of ICDS. Since ICDS is an integral part of the institution, it has undertaken several evaluation studies on various facets of the program. In 1995, it undertook an evaluation of ICDS in Pondicherry and offered recommendations. It also evaluated preschool education Kerala's ICDS program. It studied the motivational and organizational commitment of ICDS functionaries and its impact on performance. It has evaluated the refresher training of Anganwadi workers in Karnataka. This district level training program was a novel way to clear the backlog of staff that needed refresher training. Program refresheries such as assistant director, supervisor, extra conducted the training. It has studied the effectiveness of health and nutrition education through home visit as a strategy. Services. NIPCCD is not a service organization as it concentrates on training and policy matters. It has, however, opened a child guidance center at its premises at Yalahanka in 2003. Being a child-related institution, it was felt that a service component in a community-based on model was essential. Added to this was non-availability of such facility in the surrounding area. The center will be open to children up to 6 years or more with developmental and behavioral problems such as learning disability, spasticity, slow learning, mental retardation, etc. They will be attended to by trained professionals and will be referred to specialized services as and when needed. It will function at the NIPCCT premises and one day in a week will be devoted to community work at Yalahanka and Devanahali. Now, policy and partnership. As part of its consultancy work, NIPCCD has drawn up the project implementation plan for the Karnataka government's ICDS program, catering to children below 3. The World Bank's funds for this will concentrate on the background areas of Gulbarga and Kolar. NIPPCD is also a member of the Karnataka State Training Task Force that has been created to monitor and evaluate the ICDS training component. UNICEF has identified the Bangalore Center as the nodal agency to formulate the policy framework on ECCD for implementation in the southern states. In this context, the Institute has revived the existing policy on early childhood care, survival, growth, and development and is developing an action plan for the southern states. State level meets were organized to discuss state specific needs and issues so that a southern regional level policy framework could be framed. B part CSWB Central Social Welfare Board. The Central Social Welfare Board is the key organization in the field of social welfare in India. Created in 1953, it comprises of a full-time chairperson and members representing state and union territories. Its general body consists of 51 members headed by the chairperson. She is appointed by the government in consultation with the Ministry of Social Welfare from amongst prominent women social workers. The general body consists of representatives nominated by state government, social societies, representatives from the ministries of finance, rural construction, health education and social welfare, and one member for planning commission. In addition, 3 members of parliament, social workers, social scientists and social welfare administrators are also included in the general body. The administration of the affairs of the CSWB is vested in an executive committee nominated by the government from amongst the members of the CSWB. The executive committee comprises of 15 members including the executive director. The board is administratively organized in number of division and section. The chairman is aided by a secretary who is of rank of deputy secretary or director in the government of India. The CSWB has 3 joint directors, 1 financial advisor, chief accounts officer, chief administrative officer and a public relations officer. The board assists in the improvement and development of social welfare activities. Its statutory functions are to service the needs and requirements of social welfare organization, to promote the setting up of social welfare institutions in remote areas, to promote control of training and organize pilot projects in social work, to subsidies hostels for working women and the blind, to give grants in aid to voluntary institutions and NGOs providing welfare to vulnerable sections of society, to coordinate assistance extended to welfare agencies by union and state governments. The board coordinates between the programs of the CSWB and other departments and also between voluntary organization and the governments. It is funded by the Government of India, and the funds for the programs as well as non-plan expenditure of the board are a part of the budget of the Department of Social Welfare. There has been a significant increase in the total expenditure in the program of the board during the last few decades. The 9 divisions, 2 sections and 1 unit which constitute the organization of the ministry can be presented as under. The name of the division are self-explanatory. For instance, Project Division looks after projects, while Grants and Aid Division processes and administrators the distribution of grants, the accounts of which are submitted to the Finance and Accounts Division. Coordination and administration of state boards are handled by sections, and Hindu unit is for assistance to all the division and their units in the field. The state social welfare boards have a similar and parallel structure, but the regional and state variations exist in northern and southern states. The state social welfare boards have been established purely as advisory boards to advise the CSWB on the institutions requiring assistance and their eligibility to set such assistance, while the grants were sanctioned directly to the organizations by the CSWBs. These boards are also responsible to supervise, guide, and advise the voluntary organizations in the welfare programs in their respective areas. The CSWB has a wide network of its activities ranging from Anganbaris to family welfare camps. Some of these welfare activities of target groups are running of rehabilitation centers and cooperative societies for destitute widows, orphans, and deserted women and children, educating and training women to acquire vocational skills to become employable, organizing family welfare camps to promote small family norm through opinion leads, providing hostels for working women of low income groups with adequate security, operating urban welfare centers in towns for recreational activities and learning programs for women and children, supplying nutritional supplementary diet and tonics to malnourished mothers and children below 5 years through balwadis and daycare centers. The CSWB consolidates the work done by voluntary agencies. It funds specific projects and strengthens welfare services for children, women, and handicraft. The victims of drug abuse, infirm, the retarded children, and vulnerable groups of minorities are offered extra protection by the programs of the ministry, which directly as well as indirectly contribute to empowerment of the deprived. Question number 3 is discuss the assumption untaught versus unteachable in context of children with disabilities. In most cases, a person with a disability stands out from the rest, except in the case of a deaf child or the child whose intellectual functioning is only slightly below average. Most of the disabled children can be identified immediately. Each one of us reacts differently towards the special child. Some with understanding, some with sympathy, some with indifference, and some even with disgust. How we react depends to a very large extent on our life experiences, the attitudes of people around us, the attitudes we have learned to have. Unfortunately, many of us have wrong assumptions about the disabled which lead to certain negative attitudes and feelings. A common reaction is that of superstition and fear. There are still many among us who believe that a handicapped person is possessed by the devil or some spirit. This belief gets strengthened in the case of children whose mental functioning is below average, since they tend to behave inappropriately or speak meaninglessly and incoherent sentences. Fool, mad fellow, dunce, or imbecile be labels that are thoughtlessly applied to them. Many of us avoid disabled persons as they are unusual or fearing that in interacting with them we may catch the disability. If whole community holds such a belief, you can well imagine the state of the disabled. They would feel entirely cut off and alienated. They have no chance to develop because education, love, security, interaction, and with people, all that contributes to a person's sense of well being, are denied to them. In such a situation, the person lives in isolation even though she is a part of the community. The attitude that a person whose body is not normal will also have a mind that is not nominal, or that a disabled body houses an evil soul, is reflected in the portrayal of the villain in popular films. The evil person is shown with a disfigured face or body. He limps or is blind in one eye or has some mannerism which is not considered normal. Some unkind people enjoy ridiculing the disabled. For them, a person with a physical disability is a course of amusement. A people who stammers becomes an object of mockery. Young children often react in this way when they first find the handicap appear in their days. In most cases, this attitude has been acquired from the adults at home. Popular films depict the comedian as one who slutters or stammers, or whose speech is in some way unclear. In some films, he or she is portrayed as a person with subnormal intelligence, whose crazy three, a foolish utterances are a source of merriment. Some of us feel revulsion towards the disabled, more so if the person has some obvious physical definite which might make the person unattractive. Feeling uncomfortable in their presence, we try to get away from the situation, interacting with them as little as possible. One of the major assumptions that we tend to make when talking of the disabled is that they cannot be helped to improve their level of functioning. We assume that a person who does not have the right hand will never learn to ride, or G blind person cannot ride a cycle. Statements like the following are common: Raju is deaf. There is no point in talking to him. There is no need to give him this book. He does not understand much and it would be of no use to him. Can Kamala go swimming? But she is a spastic child. You know there is no coordination among her limbs. What job will he do? Nobody will employ a person whose right hand is paralyzed. It is a waste of money to send Raju to school. He can neither hear nor speak. She has some problem about numbers. I have tried teaching her basic addition, but it seems to be of no use. I have given it up. Arithmetic is not for her. But he is blind. What is the use of taking him to the flower show? He will only bump into things. These statements assume that nothing can be done to help a disabled child overcome her difficulties and to improve her level of functioning. But do we make such assumptions for ourselves? If you do not know how to knit, do you say that you can never learn? Perhaps there are reasons why you did not try, but surely do not believe that there is something about you which prevents you from learning to knit. In the same way, a person may not have learned how to ride a bicycle, but we should not conclude that she cannot learn if she tries hard enough. Why do we assume that a disabled child will continue to function in the same way as she does presently? Every person is first a learner. Each one of us has limitations with respect to how much or how well we can learn, but there is nobody who cannot be helped to improve. It would be pertinent At this point, it would be permitted to recall that the way any person functions is determined by two factors: capacity, range, and nature of experiences. Capacity refers to our potential and inherent characteristics which are determined by heredity, prenatal, and early environment. Range and nature of experiences refers to our experiences in the home, the wider family circle, the neighborhood, and the society. These two factors interact and determine our level of functioning. For example, a person may have the ability to be a good athlete, but unless the environment in the family is such that development of physical skills is encouraged, the person will not be able to develop this ability further. While we can do nothing about a person's capacity or the nature of early experiences, we can accept the person's present level of functioning and do a great deal about the future experiences and functioning. This is true for every person and is the aim of teaching. It is in this contest that the preceding discussion becomes significant. If we believe that a disabled child cannot be taught, then we are likely to do very little about it. But if we believe that she is untaught, then we are just suggesting that she can be taught. The formal view suggests that a disabled person has a predestined future without hope, while the latter view stresses that the child can achieve in all areas to the extent that she tries and is helped. This does not mean that we believe that the disability places no limitation on the person. It does, but we must be open in our thinking as regards what the disabled child can do. For it is quite possible that we may have been completely wrong in our observations. The human system is extremely complex. Motivation, optimism, patience, encouragement, love, and a range of experiences can indeed work wonders, for it is a miracle when a woman whose foot has been amputated continues classical dance after being fitted with a wooden foot. One is referring to no other than Sudha Chandran. Such achievements do indeed seem like miracles, but they are in fact brought about by perseverances and hard work on the part of the disabled and tremendous support and encouragement from the family. Little girl who had been unable to move began to quarrel. Then we can no longer call her immobile. If a deaf boy can speak using gestures or sign language, then we can no longer call him unable to communicate. An attitude of sympathetic understanding is what we must have towards children who are less fortunate. A person with such an attitude believes that just as each child has his or her strengths and weaknesses, so does a disabled child. One's effort must be a bolt on the child's strengths and help her to overcome her difficulty. Just as most children will blossom in an environment of love, encouragement, and support, so will a disabled child. Question number 4. Describe different causes of impairment. Transmission impairment is as a result of imperfection in a transmission medium. It occurs when the signal at the receiving end is different from the signal being sent. Causes of transmission impairments. There are 3 types of transmission impairments which you can recall as DAN. As in, DAN is the cause of transmission impairment, where D is distortion or dispersion, A is attenuation, and N is noise. So let us discuss each. Distortion, it means deformation in the shape of a signal. It can occur due to different signals mixing up, and the rates at which they travel are different, which leads to different phase. In optics, fiber communication distortion can be termed as to be dispersion loss. Attenuation means the regarding cutting off or loss of energy or the strength of a signal. The attenuation is mostly as a result of resistance in the transmission medium, which needs to be compensated for signal to be able to travel through, and this is why electric current carrying conductor gets hot after some period of time. However, as a signal is attenuated, it can be compensated with the use of amplifiers, which helps to amplify the attenuated signal. Attenuation is mathematics or engineering sense is expressed in decibels, that is 0 dB means no loss, but minus 3 dB refers to attenuation equal to half of the transmitted power. Noise, which is the most impairment that a transmission medium is susceptible to. Apart from attenuation, several types of noise are thermal noise, induced noise, crosstalk, and impulse noise. Thermal noise is caused by random movement of electrons in a wire carrying signal, which leads to heat that affects the original signal. Induced noise is caused by electric motor or appliances. Crosstalk is the effect of one wire on the other, as there are many wires or conductors used in transmission of signals. Impulse noise is spike, which can be caused due to lightning or surge currents. Question number 5. Describe 3 parental attitudes that come in the way of child's adjustment to the disability. Since children do not come with manual, parents often struggle to determine how to raise mentally strong, well rounded, and successful kids. Some parents are strict while others are lenient. Some are vigilant while others are distant. The four main parenting styles, permissive, authoritative, neglectful, and authoritarian, used in child psychology today are based on the work of Dania Baumrind, a developmental psychologist, and Stanford research Eleanor McCoby and John Martin. Each parenting style has different effects on children's behavior and can be identified by certain characteristics as well as degrees of responsiveness and demandingness. So, the first is permissive parent. Common traits: high responsiveness, low demandingness, communicates openly and usually lets their kids decide for themselves rather than giving direction. Rules and expectations are either not set or rarely enforced. Typically goes through great lengths to keep their kids happy, sometimes at their own expense. Permissive parents are more likely to take on a friendship role rather than a parenting role with their kids. The authoritative parent, the common trait is high possessiveness, high demandingness, sets clear rules and expectations for their kids while practicing flexibility and understanding, communicates frequently, they listen to and take into consideration their children's thoughts, feelings, and opinions, allows natural consequences to occur, but uses those opportunities to help their kids reflect and learn. Authoritative parents are nurturing, supportive, and often in time tune with their children's need. They guide their children through open and honest discussions to teach values and reasoning. Kids who have authoritative parents tend to be self-disciplined and can think for themselves. The neglectful parent, common trait: low responsiveness, low demandingness, lets their kids make fend for themselves, perhaps because they are indifferent to their needs or are involved with other things, offers little nurturance, guidance, and attention, offers struggles with their own self-esteem issues, and has a hard time to forming close relationships, sometimes referred to as uninvolved parenting. This style is exemplified by an overall sense of indifference. Neglectful parents have limited engagement with their children and rarely implement rules. They can be seen as cold and caring, but not always intentionally, as they are often struggling with their own issues. The authoritarian parent, common traits is high demandingness, low responsiveness, enforces strict rules with little consideration of their kids' feelings or social emotions and behavior needs. Sorry. Okay. Uh, Often says because I said so. When their kid questions the reasons behind a rule or consequence, communication is mostly one way, from parent to child. This rich parenting style uses stern discipline, often justified as tough love. In attempt to be in full control, authoritarian parents often take to their children without wanting input or feedback. Question 6, A part. Describe the characteristic feature of a child with mental retardation. From the educationalist point of view, the prominent characteristic of all mentally retarded children is their inability to learn and make progress in school, as we normally understand the term, and so the question now before us is what kind of special education should be provided for them. An effective answer can be given to this question only after some further attention has been paid to the nature of the learning himself. It has already been emphasized that one of the chief characteristics of the mentally retarded child is a certain lack of innate mental capacity, but what exactly does this mean? What it means is that the intellectual growth of the mentally retarded child is slower than that of the normal child and ceases earlier. In the case of the educable mentally retarded group, the rate of development is only a half of three quarters that of ordinary children. In the case of 6 feet, the trainable group of rate would be a third to a half of the average rate. All this implies that the intellectual gap between the normal and mentally retarded child, which exists at birth or soon thereafter, tends to increase with age and is permanent and largely irremediable. This must be realized and acceptable by parents and teachers alike if positive attitudes to the problem are to be developed. The mentally retarded child is slower also in sensory motor development as compared to the normal child, and will thus take longer to make progress even in such physical activities as walking or habit training or self-feeding, as well as in language development. Socially also he demonstrates immaturity, and to some degree, depending on the severity of the case, he may remain dependent on adults and require some protection, guardianship, or guidance of his life. Emotionally, however, his feelings and needs mirror those of normal children. Love and affection and the winning of approval and acceptance are vital to all children. And in the respect of lease, the mentally retarded do not differ markedly from may or however tend to be greater, and their dependence will certainly last longer. Such a brief outline of the nature of the mentally retarded child does much less than the justice to the subject, but it does help us realize why the mentally retarded child fails to make headway in the ordinary school, and at the same time the necessity of creating educational provision to meet actual needs is more clearly illustrated. In nutshell, the chief characteristics of mentally retarded children are as lack of abstract thinking, slow speed of learning, limited interest, lack of muscular coordination, lack of originality, suggestibility. Mental illness, also called mental health disorders, refers to a wide range of mental health conditions. Disorders that affect your mood, thinking, and behavior. Example of mental illness include depression, anxiety disorders, schizophrenia, eating disorder, and addictive behaviors. Many people have mental health concerns from time to time, but a mental health concern becomes a mental illness when ongoing signs and symptoms cause frequent stress and affect your ability to function. A mental illness can make you disarable and can cause problems in your daily life, such as at school or work or in relationship. In most cases, symptoms can be managed with a combination of a medication and talk therapy, physiotherapy, psychotherapy. Symptoms. Signs and symptoms of mental illness can vary depending on the disorder, circumstances, and other factors. Mental illness symptoms can affect emotions, thought, and behavior. Example of signs and symptoms include feeling sad or down, confused thinking or reduced ability to concentrate, excessive fears or worries, or extreme feeling of guilt, extreme mood change or highs and lows, withdrawal from friends and activities, significant tiredness, low energy, or problems sleeping, detachment from reality, paranoia or hallucinations, inability to cope with daily problems or stress, trouble understanding and relating to situations and to people, problems with alcohol and drug use, major change in eating habits, sex drive change, excessive anger, hostility or violence, suicidal thinking. Sometimes symptoms of a mental health disorder appear as physical problems such as stomach pain, back pain, headaches, or the unexplained aches and pains. What are some ways through which you can help visually impaired child acquire language skills? Vision helps to provide information about non-verbal communication and also helps provide meaning to language. Students with visual impairments need many hands-on experiences with real objects paired with auditory labels and descriptions and a rich literacy environment. The toddler's years are typically the time of great language development as child begin to make connections and verbally label and identify objects. Children who are blind or visually impaired will not have the same opportunity to casually observe and make connections with gestures and materials in their environment. Unless the students was intentionally taught through direct experiences paired with language, their language development will undoubtedly be delayed. To encourage the student to develop language, it is important for the student to be exposed to good language models in an active learning environment. The following strategies can help a student to develop their language skills. Model appropriate language. Practice turn taking, teach through units that help students understand topics and integrate skills. Provide students choices within the activities. Develop a routine to help the student anticipate transition and build language. Embed language into all the students' experiences. Find ways to help the student participate in all activities. There are language problems that are common among children with usual impairments. They are verbalism, echolalia, echolalia, difficulty with pronouns, and frequent questioning. Verbalism. It is common for the student to talk about people, object, and events without having an understanding of the concept. This is because they have not had the experiences related to the topic but has heard other talks about the said topic. Having a vocabulary or language without understanding is called verbalism. It is the ability to talk about a subject without the concepts or understanding related to it. If the student is not provided with many hands on experiences, the student will have difficulty understanding concepts and will not have a foundation to build upon. As stated in guiding, the principles provide the student with many hands-on and concrete experiences with real objects. Echolalia. Many students who are blind or visually impaired learn to talk by echoic or copying phrases or sentences even if they do not understand it. They may echo what they just heard or have delayed echolalia where they repeat language heard earlier in association with a particular subject or event. Speech and language pathologists can evaluate and determine if the student needs support and assistance in developing their language comprehension. Again, using concrete experiences can help a student understand language, and using a consistent schedule can help a student fee structure and organization, allowing them to anticipate the activities. Help expand on the student's language and the model language. Excessive questions. Many students with visual impairment ask excessive questions which can be inappropriate to the conversation or inappropriate within the social context. Frequently this can be a learned way of initiating interactions or to check that the person is still nearby. Students need to learn when it is appropriate to ask a question and when they need to listen for an appropriate time to ask it. Students who ask questions for comfort and reassuring of another person's presence should be encouraged to express their feelings directly rather than through questioning. Sustaining conversation. Students who are blind or visually impaired also can have difficulty sustaining conversation. They can tend to focus on their own interest and not appear to have an interest in others. Students may need explicit instructions in participating in conversations. This is a skill that can be addressed by the speech and language pathologist or from the school's guidance counselor, where skills can be modeled and practiced. Briefly write about each of the following in 300 words each. Autism. Autism spectrum disorder is a condition related to brain development that impacts how a person perceives and socializes with others, causes problems in social interaction and communication. The disorder also includes limited and repetitive patterns of behavior. The term spectrum in autism spectrum disorder refers to the wide range of symptoms and severity. Autism spectrum disorder includes conditions that were previously considered separate: autism, Asperger's syndrome, childhood disintegrative disorder, and an unspecified form of pervasive developmental disorder. Some people still use the term Asperger's syndrome, which is generally thought to be at the mild end of autism spectrum disorder. Autism spectrum disorder begins in early childhood and eventually causes problems functioning in society, socially in school and at work. For example, often children show symptoms of autism within the first year. A small number of children appear to develop normally in the first year and then go through a period of regression between 18 and 24 months of age when they develop autism symptoms. While there is no cure for autism spectrum disorder, intensive early treatment can make a big difference in the life of many children. Symptoms: some children show signs of autism spectrum disorder in early infancy, such as reduced eye contact, lack of response to their name, or indifference to caregivers. Other children may develop normally for the first few months or years of life, but then suddenly become withdrawn, aggressive, or lose language skills they have already acquired. Signs usually are seen by age 2 years. Each child with autism spectrum disorder is likely to have a unique pattern of behavior and level of severity, from low functioning to high functioning. Some children with autism spectrum disorder have difficulty learning, and some have signs of lower than normal intelligence. Other children with the disorder have normal to high intelligence. They learn quickly yet have trouble communicating and applying what they know in everyday life and adjusting to social situations. Because of the unique mixture of symptoms in each child, severity can sometimes be difficult to determine. It's generally based on the level of impairments and how they impact the ability to function. What to see a doctor or when to see a doctor. Babies develop at their own pace and many don't follow exact timelines found in some parenting books. But child with autism spectrum disorder usually show some signs of delaying development before age 2 years. If you are concerned about your child's development or you suspect that your child may have autism spectrum disorder, discuss your concerns with your doctor. The spectrum associated with the disorder can be linked with other developmental disorders. Signs of autism spectrum disorder often appear early in development when there are obvious delays in language, skills, and social interactions. Your doctor may recommend developmental tests to identify if your child has delays in cognitive, language, and social skills. If your child does not respond with a smile or happy expression by 6 months, does not mimic sounds or facial expressions by 9 months, does not babble or coo by 12 months, does not gesture such as point or wave by 14 months, does not say single words by 16 months, does not play make believe or pretend by 18 months, does not say two words phrases by 24 months, loses language skills or social skills at any age. B part, fear and phobias. Fear is one of the most basic human emotions. It is programmed into the nervous system and works like an instinct. From the time we are infants, we are equipped with the survival instincts necessary to respond with fear when we sense danger or feel unsafe. Fear helps protect us, it makes us alert to danger and prepares us to deal with it. Feeling afraid is very natural and helpful in some situations. Fear can be like a warning, a signal that cautions us to be careful. Like all emotions, fear can be mild, medium, and intense depending on the situation and the person. A feeling of fear can be brief or it can last longer. When we sense danger, the brain reacts instantly, sending signals that activate the nervous system. This causes physical responses such as faster heartbeat, rapid breathing, and an increase in BP. Blood pumps to muscle groups to prepare the body for physical action. Skin sweats to keep the body cool. Some people might notice sensation in the stomach, head, chest, legs, or hands. These physical sensations of the fear can be mild or strong. This response is known as fight or flight because that is exactly what the body is preparing itself to do: fight for the danger or run fast to get away. The body stays in this state of fight flight until the brain receives an all clear message and turns off the response. Phobias. A phobia is an intense fear reaction to a particular thing or a situation. With a phobia, the fear is out of proportion to the potential danger, but to the person with the phobia, the danger feels real because of the fear is so very strong. Phobia cause people to worry about, dread, feel upset by, and avoid the thinkings or situations they fear because the physical sensation of fear can be so intense. So, having a phobia can interfere with normal activities. A person with a phobia of dogs might feel afraid to walk to school in case of he or she sees a dog on the way. Sometimes with an elevator phobia might avoid a field trip if it involves going on an elevator. A girl with a phobia of thunderstorms might be afraid to go to school if the weather forecast predicts a storm. She might feel terrible distress and fear when the sky turns cloudy. A guy with social phobia experience intense fear of public speaking or interacting and may be afraid to answer questions in class, give a report, or speak a classmate in the lunchroom. It can be exhausting and upsetting to feel the intense fear that goes with having a phobia. It can be disappointing to miss out on opportunities because fear is holding you back, and it can be confusing and embarrassing to feel afraid of things that others seems to have no problem with. Causes. Sometimes people get teased about their fears, even if the person doing the teasing does not mean to be unkind and unfair. Teasing only means the situation worse. Some phobias develop when someone has a scary experience with a particular thing or situation. A tiny brain structure called the amygdala, pronounced amygdala, keeps track of experiences that trigger strong emotions. Once a certain thing or situation triggers a strong fear reaction, the amygdala warns the person by triggering a fear reaction every time he or she encounters that thing or situation. Someone might develop a bee phobia after being stuck during stung during a particular scary situation. For that person, looking at a photograph of a bee, seeing a bee from a distance, or even walking near flowers where there could be a bee can all trigger the phobia. Sometimes, though there may be no single event that causes a particular phobia, some people may be more sensitive to fears because of personality traits they are born with. Certain genes they have inherited or situations they have experienced. People who have had strong childhood fears or anxiety may be more likely to have one or more phobias. Having a phobia is not a sign of weakness or immaturity, it's a response the brain has learned in an attempt to protect the person. It's as if the brain's alert system triggers a false alarm, generating intense fear that is out of proportion to the situation. Because the fear signal is so intense, the person is convinced that danger is greater than it actually is. Overcoming phobias. People can learn to overcome phobia by gradually facing their fears. This is not easy at first. It takes willingness and bravery. Sometimes people need to help the therapist to guide them through the process. Overcoming a phobia usually starts with making a long list of the person's fear in least to worst order. For example, with a dog phobia, the list might start with the things the person is least afraid of, such as looking at the photo of a dog. It will then work all the way to be worst fears, such as standing next to someone who's petting a dog on a leash, and walking a dog. Gradually and with support, the person tries each fear situation on the list. One at a time, starting with the least fear, the person is not forced to do anything and works on each fear until he or she feels uncomfortable, taking as long as needed. A therapist could also show someone with a dog phobia how to approach, pet, and walk a dog and help the person to try it too. The person may expect terrible things to happen when near a dog. Talk, talking Talking about this can help too when people find that what they were does not actually turn out to be true. It can be a great relief. A therapist might also teach relaxation practices such as specific ways of breathing, muscle relaxation training, or soothing self talk. These can help people comfortable and bold enough to face the fears on their list. As somebody gets used to a feared object or situation, the brain adjusts how it responds and the phobia is overcome. Often, the hardest part of the overcoming a phobia is getting started. Once a person decides to go for it and gets the right coaching and support, it can be surprising how quickly fear can melt away. Causes of hearing impairment. Hearing loss that occurs gradually as you age is common. As your age is common, almost half the people in the United States older than age 65 have some degree hearing loss. Hearing loss is defined as one of the three types: conductive, sensory neural, mixed. Aging and chronic exposure to loud noises both contribute to hearing loss. Other factors such as access to airways can temporarily reduce how well your ears conduct sound. You can't reverse most types of hearing loss. However, you and your doctor or a hearing specialist can take steps to improve what you hear. Symptoms, signs, and symptoms of hearing loss may include muffling of speech and other sounds, difficulty understanding words, specifically against background noise or in a crowd, trouble hearing consonants, frequently asking others to speak more slowly, clearly, and loudly, needing to turn up the volume of the television or radio, withdrawal from conversation, avoidance of some social settings. Causes of hearing loss include damage to the inner ear. Aging and exposure to loud noise may cause wear and tear on the hairs or nerve cells in the cochlea that send sound signal to the brain. When these hairs or nerve cells are damaged or mixing, electrical signals are not transmitted as efficiently and hearing loss occurs. Higher pitched tones may become muffled to you. It may become difficult for you to pick out words against background noise. Gradual buildup of airwax. Airwax can block the air canal and prevent conduction of sound waves. Airwax removal can help restore your hearing. Airwax and abnormal bone growth or tumors in the outer or middle ear can any of these can cause hearing loss. Ruptured eardrum, loud blasts of noise, sudden change in pressure, poking your eardrum with an object and infection can cause your eardrum to rupture and affect your hearing. Factors that may damage or lead to loss of the hairs and nerve cells in your inner ear include aging, loud noise, heredity, occupational noises, recreational noises, some medications, some illness. Elements of communication. D part. In the process of communication, at least two persons are required, sender and receiver. The process of communication begins when a sender wishes to convey some idea, fact, information, or opinion to the receiver. The idea is conceived by the sender and is put in such terms that can be conveyed. He decides the channel of communication and conveys the idea. The idea is received by the receiver, and after understanding the idea, action is taken according to the information or direction received from the source. The communication process involves understanding, sharing, and meaning, and it consists of 8 essential elements: source, message, channel, receiver, feedback, environment, context, and interference. And the process of communication involves the following steps: sender, message, encoding, media, decoding, receiver, feedback, noise. Question number 8. Explain the 3 steps required to implement community strategies. Community is universal. We have all been part of one in some shape or form, which is likely why so many communities are started without a strategy. We all have experience with communities in the cultural sense. Even those who are not professional community builders would assume that communities can be run based on good institution alone, or may even feel that being strategic about community is inauthentic. This is not the case. Strategies are absolutely necessary to help community managers run communities effectively at inception, and while they grow, strong strategies empower community managers to infuse the community's authenticity into other parts of the business. A community strategy is a detailed long range plan for how to support and evolve a healthy community in order to achieve the organization's business objective. Building a community strategy is essential for CMs because it forces you to choose a tactic even if it's the wrong one, which lets you measure what works and what does not. It also forces you to activate deep prioritize prioritize out of scope ideas, even good ones. It ensures your actions in the community align with your organization's goal. It makes you consider best practices in context instead of relying on boilerplate tactics that may not work for your community. So, with that in mind, here is my systematic approach to developing a community strategy. We teach this process in our C School Foundations and Essentials level courses, and dozens of students have successfully used it to produce community strategies for their organizations. Whether you are building an entirely new community, you are new to managing this practical work, or you are looking to refresh your community, it's never too late to develop the revisit your strategy. Set a purpose and measure of success. The initial planning phase involves outlining your community's why, the reason it does or will exist. You will look at how the community will serve both its members and your company's goal. To kickstart this process, ask yourself the following questions: who outside of the company and I building this community for? What do they get out of it? Your answer could look this like this: I'm building this community for project managers who will have a space where they can connect with other professionals in the same field. If your community serves a group that is different from your company core customer base, it's worth taking time to define your target audience and build personas. Be as specific as possible when doing this. Include demographics about their goals, psychographics, and personal details. Humanize your presence with details about their goals, motivations, and frustrations. Who inside the company is this community for? What do they get out of it? It's likely that most of it, not all. If the company's department will reap the benefits of community, you could then have multiple answers to these questions: department benefit, product research, what was customers want, marketing, source content ideas, sales, better understand target customer, support, escalate issues quickly. As there any conflict between what the company and what members want from this community? In other words, do your answers to the first two questions above align? For example, if everything the company want is transactional, but you think the most valuable community for customers will be about best practice sharing, that could be an issue. If the wants are at odds, you may have to develop a more comprehensive plan to meet both, or deprioritize one which you focus on the other for a time. What are the main metrics my company already track? What ones does this community have the biggest potential to impact? Your organization will already be collecting and reporting top level business metrics, things like monthly recurring revenue, customer lifetime value, new subscribers extra. Make a list of the metrics your community can positively impact, which can help when you plan content and events for the community. There is no right answer for this. Each community's potential impact on metrics will develop on a combination of factors such as your product's company goal and community purpose. How will I measure success at launch? In the first 6 months, in the first year? This is true with many projects, but in a community context, what's important to measure will vary at different phases of maturity. For example, within your first 6 months, it will probably be meaningful to track new members and community adoption. After 2 years, you might find it more insightful to focus on how existing community members perform on company health metrics versus non community members. Defining what success means at different stages of your community's lifetime will help you set realistic expectations within your company. 2. Research. This is something many community pros miss, the idea or myth that community is nebulous and untrackable means even experienced CMs seem to default to hypothesizing about their community in the dark. It does not have to be that way. In this research phase, you will speak to users and potential community members. If you do one thing in your research phase, it should be this: get feedback from members who fall into your target community persona to validate what you are considering offering. This should include questions on everything from your big picture plans to platform to the kind of content you hope to produce. You could also run some of your ideas by users, prospective community members to see which ones are feasible. Audit and analyze your company's existing community efforts. Your company may not have a full fledged community, but they may already be bringing people together in some way or another. You can look at things like in person and virtual events, customer councils, or ambassador program to see what resonate with your community and what you can improve or do away with. You can also analyze this against your user interviews to see if there are gaps to fill. Check out the competition. Plan content types and frequency. Determine how often you will share content. Decide access levels and what content to get. This is all for today. Thank you for watching this video. Bye bye.